Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining for today's Green Purchasing Roundtable. Today we'll be talking about purchasing for waste reduction, a number of strategies, and glad to have you all here today. I encourage you to join in our collaborative Google Doc, and as many of you are used to by this point, click on the link and add some information about yourself, your name, your organization, and something you've done to cut down on disposables in your jurisdiction, if you can think of anything. And as always, you can scroll and see other colleagues on the line and some strategies they've used as well. If you have the chance to rename yourself in Zoom, that'll also let others know as you're talking or asking questions where you're coming from. And we have a packed agenda today. We'll do, right now we're doing welcome and intros, and then we'll have a presentation on strategies to reduce, we'll start with single-use batteries. And we'll hear also some local examples for each of these categories and some wonderful strategies from our presenters at Responsible Purchasing Network that you can use in your jurisdiction. So we'll hear about single-use batteries, plastic water bottles, and then a bunch of other product categories, aerosols, wipes, foodware, and beyond. And after each, you'll get the chance to ask questions. Then we'll get to sharing all of your experiences on a number of different product categories and hearing great examples from our local community that people will share. And we'll remind you we created a number of resources just for this topic today, and they're either posted or about to be posted. So you'll get the reminders about those both at the end of today's event and also via email. We'll do evaluations and close. And I'd like to introduce our presenters, or in some cases, reintroduce, because many of you may have been on prior webinars. We've been so pleased to have them in the past. We have Alicia Culver and Kelly Panciera from Responsible Purchasing Network to share their expertise developed over many years working on all of this. So we're really pleased to have them today. And please feel free to enable video, show us your beautiful faces, and keep those questions rolling. We will get to them, so chat them at any time, and we'll either get to them live, or if we don't have the chance, someone will be able to follow up with you if we know what jurisdiction you're from. We do want to answer your questions and provide any technical assistance we can on green purchasing. We will be recording, and the recording will be shared. And make sure to sign in so we know who's on the line. I mentioned it, but I want to make sure you're aware of these great new purchasing guides, the sustainable purchasing guides that we've been telling you about for quite a while. You can see on the slide the list of all of them that are currently available. The ones in green, the one is brand new, available now that on meetings and events, just added for this webinar. And we're so pleased to have that resource available, put together by our consultants and Responsible Purchasing Network and sustainable procurement advisors. And I also highlighted alternatives to bottled water and rechargeable batteries and chargers. The content for those is in final draft form, but the authors are waiting until the discussion today to see if there's anything more that the group needs, any needs that bubble up, and they will be able to add it to the guides. And there may even be case studies as well from our local community that end up being able to make it into the guides. We want to make it as useful for you as possible. So all of these and more are going to be coming, and keep an eye out for those. For those that are being generated for this event, we will, once they're posted, we will send you a link. Anyone who's registered for this event, we will send you a link via email. And with all of that, I'm going to pass things over to Alicia Culver to start us off on purchasing strategies to reduce battery waste.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm the director of the Responsible Purchasing Network, and I'm happy to be here and supporting this project. Battery waste is one that's been a significant issue. Cities buy a lot of batteries, and it's costly and ends up having to be recycled or managed as waste. So let's go to the next slide. We're going to go quickly through some of the information that we have put together. Rechargeable batteries have been around for a long time, and as probably most of you know, a rechargeable battery can replace 500 to 2,000 single-use alkaline batteries. They're often not used because the perception is that their performance is not that great. I'm here today to tell you that over time, the performance of rechargeable batteries has really improved. If you switch out to rechargeables, the typical payback is about a year, and they can save hundreds of dollars over their lifetime. So some of the equipment that they're used typically are flashlights, computer mice, cameras, paper towels, and soap dispensers. And there have been some recent pilot tests that have reported that rechargeable batteries had to be changed out actually less often than the equivalent single-use batteries. So if you tried them in the past and had a bad experience, we're hoping that you'll give them a second look. Next slide. The sustainable purchasing guide that we're putting together, the scope is really the smaller batteries, AA, AAA, CD, and 9-volt batteries. There are other rechargeable batteries out there, and we may look at those in the future. If you're going to specify them, obviously we want the battery to be rechargeable, and there are chemistries that are more environmentally preferable, which is what we're encouraging. Nickel metal hydride, which is, if you've used rechargeables in the past, it's most likely what you've been using. But there are some more powerful batteries that can be used in high drain equipment like cameras. These are lithium ion and nickel zinc. And we had a lot of discussion about the lithium ion. They need to be handled carefully at the end of their life in particular, so that they don't contribute to fires. And that can be just taping the ends, for example, before you recycle them. Next slide. The Sustainable Purchasing Guide gives you cut and paste specifications for these products, and the nickel metal hydride ones are measured usually in milliamp hours. You can actually see the MAH rating often on the battery, and we have been working on a compliant products list to go along with it, so that we can point you to the rechargeables that meet these minimum power ratings. So we did a market assessment of the batteries in the market and found that there are some that have a higher power rating, and these are much more likely to perform better. They have essentially more juice in them, and so they won't have to be recharged as often. The lithium ion and nickel zinc batteries are measured a little bit differently in milliwatt hours. And so same, we did a market assessment, and these are the ones that are on the higher end, but are relatively available in the market as well. Next slide. If you want to go further, you can look for UL safety certification. Some batteries have this listed, the UL, some of them don't. You can look for batteries that are low self-discharge. Many of them are. That just means if you are not using them for a while and they're sitting in the drawer, they're not going to drain out very quickly. Some come pre-charged, so if you need it right away, there are some that can be used right out of the package. There's some interesting innovations in this space. Some of them actually have USB charging ports right built into the battery, so that you don't even have to buy a separate charger. And there is information also typically on the manufacturer's website about the number of times the battery can be recharged before it significantly degrades. So you can look at that. We are evaluating those claims to see what would be sort of a minimum that you should be looking for, but you can compare batteries at this point for that as well. Next slide. Um, so we also have information on the SPG about chargers. So you want to look for chargers that have an electrical safety certification. There's three that we have typically found on the chargers: UL, ETL, or CSA. They are ratings that are equivalent to each other. We're also encouraging, actually requiring issue, and know that you can find ROS compliance on these. So ROS is the restriction of hazardous substances. This is also typically available and listed on the manufacturer's technical data sheet. And so this means that it won't have lead solder in it, for example, as well as some other persistent toxic chemicals. Next slide. If you want to go further and look for some other attributes, most of these are performance attributes as opposed to environmental attributes, but if they work better, it means that you're more likely to use them. So there are some chargers that do quick charging, which means that they can charge up in, say, 15 minutes as opposed to several hours. Some of them, of the chargers, can charge multiple sizes of rechargeable batteries. That means that if you buy different sizes, AA and AAA, you don't have to buy two different chargers. Some, but not many, have the ability to charge multiple battery chemistries. You do need to be careful about mixing chemistries typically. Some have automatic charge protection, which means that it will stop putting a trickle into the battery and won't overcharge. Some will keep trickling, which means that if it's left in the charger for a long time, it will keep it at full capacity. And then there's other attributes as well, like individual stations, which means you can put one battery in. You don't have to have it completely full in order to recharge. Next slide. There are other strategies that we are highlighting in the Sustainable Purchasing Guide. For example, consider hardwiring powered equipment. You can have flashlights, for example, that have built-in batteries. You can hardwire things like paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers. Then you won't need batteries at all. There is an upfront expense to that, but it often can pay off very quickly. You can purchase equipment with rechargeable batteries built in as well, so that you just can easily plug the equipment in and it will recharge the batteries. I know when we did a pilot test a few years ago, the police department really liked this. They had these batteries that were built into the flashlights, and they just plugged the flashlights into the wall. And they just found that was a lot more practical than having to take the batteries out. And then so look for those opportunities that will make it easier and more practical for you to use rechargeable batteries. And off to Laurentine. She's going to give us some experiences they have with rechargeable batteries.
Right. You've touched on some of the things so I'm sharing from when I worked with the city of El Cerrito. At the recycling center, we used rechargeable batteries. And so we had the two chargers for multiple types of batteries. Um, it worked really well. We only had one time where one of the batteries corroded inside of the charger. But other than that, um, we would put it in and put them in and let them charge. This was earlier, so um, technology has evolved. So we would need to put it in, the night before, so it'd have time to charge up um, overnight. But it worked well. We didn't have any problems with it. We used them for our flashlights and our mice and whatnot. So I don't know if you have any questions. I just wanted to share that piece.
Thank you for sharing that, Laurentine. It looks like we lost our host, Sarah. So I have
Oh, that's what
taken,
happened.
yeah, so I have taken over. I just got a message that she is trying to reconnect. So we'll let her in when she can do that. But let me go ahead and share.
Let me just add one thing, and I don't
Yeah.
remember if this ended up in the final slide deck here, but there is uh, a recycling program for batteries. It used to be called Call to Recycle, and some of you may have used that, and it used to be largely for rechargeable batteries. That program, in large part, oh, here it is. Okay. In large part, because there have been so many states that have put in battery end of life policies, um, it has expanded. So it's now called the Battery Network, and it does collect a larger number of batteries. It collects bigger rechargeable batteries as well as the small ones, and it also collects some batteries that are um, some batteries that are alkaline batteries. So check it out. There are programs for local governments where you can get the battery recycling boxes. You can get information about how the program works and even posters that you can put up to assist. So check it out, and that could save you a significant amount of money. I do remember us working with San Jose actually a number of years ago. They had a pallet of batteries they're about to pay to recycle, and we pointed them to this program, and they were able to get all those batteries recycled free of charge. So this is an industry financed program, sometimes called extended producer responsibility. Check it out.
Thank you, Alicia. Yep, and we just heard our example from El Cerrito. And we're going to let's go ahead and see if there are any other questions that folks have on this topic, and then we'll transition to our next.
I mean, I guess I should add that for El Cerrito, we had the recycling center, as all of you are aware. So all of the city had little stations where we would collect batteries and they would be assembled and recycled at the recycling center with our third-party recycler. But in the office at the recycling center, because I did a lot of the green purchasing for our division, we used rechargeable batteries.
Great, thank you. Ooh, Sarah's Wi-Fi is down. Now we know what happened.
Oh,
Technology gets in the way. Okay, so we're just gonna persevere here. Please feel free to throw in any other questions in the chat as we go. We can always return to this topic. But I think what we'll do is, Jenna, can I ask you to hit record to the cloud and we'll begin recording again? It was still going. Sorry. Okay, we are recording again. My apologies. I assumed it had gone off with Sarah. Okay, so then let's move on and go to our discussion on reducing plastic water bottles. And I think Kelly is going to take us from here. Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks. I'm Kelly Pansera. I'm the Senior Research Associate with the Responsible Purchasing Network. Quick show of hands. How many of you have policies that limit or ban single-use plastic water bottles in your facilities? Anybody? Or how about folks who may be considering it? A few extra folks. Great. This guidance that we're about to go through is about what comes next. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So the information in this presentation draws from Stop Waste's upcoming Sustainable Purchasing Guide on alternatives to bottled water that Sarah mentioned earlier. It includes detailed purchasing specifications, but for today, we're going to focus more on the practical side, how cities can implement bottled water alternatives in their facilities using existing tap water infrastructure. We're going to walk through some of the equipment options, how to choose the right one, key purchasing considerations, and some implementation tips. And a quick note, this guidance does focus on facility operations rather than things like outdoor events and festivals, although we do briefly touch on options for field crews. Next slide, please. So why are cities looking at alternatives to bottled water? One reason is cost. So individual bottles can seem inexpensive, but when you factor in ongoing purchases, delivery, storage, waste handling, all those costs add up quickly over time. And some of the alternatives have higher upfront costs for sure, but generally, they have lower ongoing costs, even when you factor in periodic filter replacements for those options that have filters. A second reason is waste reduction. So even when bottles are recycled, they still require resources to manufacture and process. And the tap-based alternatives reduce reliance on single-use packaging, which is often a priority for cities. Another issue that's getting more attention recently is microplastics exposure. There have been several recent studies suggesting that bottled water may contain significantly more microplastics than tap water. There's a recent study by the Ohio State University, that found roughly 3 times more microplastics in bottled water. So switching to tap water alternatives can help limit that exposure. There's also policy alignment. So many jurisdictions already have waste reduction or sustainability goals in place, or like we just saw with your show of hands there. In some cases, the policies are specifically aimed at reducing or eliminating bottled water. And finally, we do want to recognize that bottled water still has a role in certain situations like emergency response, disaster preparedness, or public outreach. So there may be instances where tap water is not going to be a practical option. Next slide, please. So once a city decides to reduce or phase out bottled water, the next question is, what do we replace it with? There are several options. So we're going to start with the simplest, which are water pitchers and dispensers. And these, of course, are available with or without filters, depending on your needs. And these work well in small offices, meeting rooms, conference rooms, especially where bottled water might otherwise be provided. They are low cost, they're portable, they're easy to implement. And again, many of them have filters if you're concerned about taste, odor, or reducing other contaminants in your water. A common concern is chilled water. Pitchers or dispensers, you can simply put those in a refrigerator if you have one. The main limitation also is that they require manual refilling, which can be a challenge. So these are best for smaller groups or occasional use. Next slide, please. So the next option moves from portable equipment to something installed at the sink. So these are the tap-based filtration systems. These are good for break rooms, kitchens, shared workspaces where people already get their water. These can improve taste and odor, and again, depending on the certification, it may also reduce other contaminants. Most tap filtration systems require relatively simple maintenance. It's usually just periodic filter replacement. We also want to note refrigerators. So some refrigerators have built-in water filters, and that could be another source of filtered drinking water for areas like break rooms. And again, if you need chilled water, if that is a priority, you can pair this with pitchers or dispensers that can go directly into the refrigerator. And in some cases, we see facilities that install whole building filtration systems. Sometimes they're also called point of entry filtration systems. And this treats water as it enters the building. So all taps and fixtures in the building receive treated water. These systems are, of course, very large. They're more complex than these tap-based options, and they're typically used when you're addressing a building-wide water quality concern. Next slide, please. And then the third option involves more permanent infrastructure. So, things like drinking water fountains, water bottle refill stations, and bottleless water coolers. So drinking fountains obviously provide access to drinking water which is useful in public spaces or places where people might not have a reusable cup or water bottle. Water bottle refill stations designed to refill water bottles, obviously. And a lot of newer installations combine a drinking fountain and a refill station in a single unit, so you can accommodate different types of uses in one piece of equipment. And then there are bottleless water coolers. They're often used in offices as a replacement for those traditional water coolers with the large plastic jugs on top. And these often provide chilled water, some provide hot water, some even provide sparkling water. So there's a lot of different options for plumbed infrastructure as well. And they work well in higher traffic areas and areas where you need a continuous supply of drinking water. Next slide, please. So one question that often comes up is, do you need a filter? So in many cases, filtration is optional. Municipal drinking water, it's regulated, it's routinely tested to meet federal and state safety standards. But a lot of people prefer filters to improve taste and odor concerns. And there are also situations where additional filtration makes sense, such as if you have older plumbing in your facility, or there's specific lead concerns, or there's a known water quality issue with your building, or perhaps even a larger issue with your city water. So in those cases, it's helpful to work with facility staff to determine the appropriate filtration system. And there's a lot of different filter technologies. The three most common ones that you'll see are activated carbon. So they generally improve taste and odor. They can remove additional contaminants as well, depending on the certifications that they have. The second one is reverse osmosis. It removes dissolved solids and sediments, but it does increase water use and the maintenance is a lot higher. There's also ultraviolet treatment, which inactivates microorganisms. And these last two, reverse osmosis and ultraviolet, they're generally unnecessary for municipally supplied drinking water unless you do have a specific water quality issue. Next slide, please. Oh, and then just a quick note. In the SPG itself, we didn't prescribe specific filter types because we recognize that the needs are going to vary by facility and your local water conditions. So how do we decide which option to use? This is a quick table. This is also present in the SPG. It pulls together the options we just looked at and kind of shows how they compare across a few practical factors. So you'll see the first column here lists the equipment types. The next column highlights the kinds of spaces where each option tends to work best. The cost column gives a general sense of upfront cost and ongoing maintenance, which can help with planning and budgeting. And the last column highlights practical considerations, whether the water is cold, whether, there's filtration available, the convenience factor. So the main takeaway here is that each option has trade-offs, and the best choice depends on the space, the number of people using it, the infrastructure already in place. And in practice, most buildings are using a mix of these options to meet different needs across the building. Next slide, please. So the SPG goes into much more detail on the purchasing criteria, but here are a few of the key things to look for. So if filtration is part of the system, the most common standard you'll see is NSF ANSI 42, and that's the one that reduces taste and odor contaminants, things like chlorine. Some systems may also be certified to NSF ANSI 53, and that addresses additional contaminants like lead and PFAS and some other things. It's also important that the filters are readily available and replaceable, and the manufacturer provides clear guidance on how to do that. And some cities also prioritize filter take-back programs to reduce the waste from spent cartridges. Next slide, please. Another consideration is the materials used in the drinking water equipment, apart from the filter. So we have NSF ANSI 61 verifies that materials in contact with the drinking water are safe. And NSF ANSI 372 ensures low lead content in the drinking water components. Also, stainless steel is generally preferred for water contact surfaces because it's durable and inert, but plastic is still used, especially for things like the pitchers and dispensers. And also sometimes some parts in filters themselves. So when the plastics are present, look for BPA and BPS free. Next slide, please. And then for the plumbed equipment with electrical components, there's a few additional things to consider. First, there's UL listed for electrical safety. Second, for refrigerated bottleless water coolers, Energy Star certification is available. Energy Star certification is not available for the other options that we've talked about, just the bottleless water coolers. And so, selecting an Energy Star model can help you select more efficient choices. There's also making sure the unit meets ADA accessibility requirements. Many units also use touchless activation, which can help with accessibility as well as hygiene. Next slide, please. Okay, so everything we've talked about so far focuses on buildings and facilities. Field operations can look a little different. For field crews, the goal is still to rely on tap water when possible. Agencies can help facilitate this by issuing reusable water bottles to staff. Water can be supplied through insulated coolers or vehicle-mounted water tanks filled from tap water. Refill stations can also be installed at maintenance facilities, yards, or depots. And again, bottled water may still make sense in locations where there's no reliable tap access. So we just have to keep that in mind. And next slide, please. And then we'll close with just a few practical tips that can make these programs easier to implement. Providing reusable cups or bottles so people have something to refill and don't default to a disposable option like paper or plastic cups. If you have dishwashers, utilizing those for cleaning reusable bottles, cups, glasses, pitchers. Also making sure someone is responsible for the maintenance, like the filter replacement. This is often going to be facilities, or perhaps this might be something that you put into your vendor contract, and the vendor would be responsible for that. Also incorporating tap water options into meeting and event planning, which is often where bottled water gets purchased the most. So those are a few of the main options cities are using to reduce bottled water in their facilities. And like Sarah mentioned, the full sustainable purchasing guide with the detailed specifications will be available soon, and we'll reach out when that's posted to Stop Waste's website. So I think we are moving on to questions and hearing about approaches you all are seeing in your own facilities.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kelly. What a wealth of information. And I know there's so much research that went into every component of that, both the presentation and what's showing up in the Sustainable Purchasing Guide. Kelly, there are a couple questions already for you in the chat, so take a look at those. Interesting stuff about the recyclability of the filters, but we're going to get to those in a moment. I want to start with a couple local examples from the cities of Dublin and Alameda. So I'm going to pass the mic to Michelle from Dublin first to share a bit about the ban in Dublin
Good
on water
morning,
bottles.
everyone. Thanks, Sarah. So my name's Michelle. I'm with the City of Dublin. Our City Council actually adopted a resolution and administrative policy in 2010 that bans single-use plastic beverage bottles and styrofoam at city-sponsored events, which I believe Sarah will share out after this meeting. But this resolution and policy, it includes events and meetings as well as beverages purchased with city funds for staff use. So to support this policy, our break rooms have ice machines and then the bottleless water coolers, so staff can fill up their personal bottles or cups. We also have mugs that are available in our break rooms and kitchenettes too. For meeting rooms, we have reusable pitchers and cups that are available. And then many of our facilities also have water refill stations and drinking fountains available for the public too. For internal city events like staff lunches, we used to have to remind our HR team pretty frequently about the policy ahead of the events, but over time they've gotten used to it and we don't have to remind them as much anymore. So what they've been doing instead of the plastic beverage containers is purchasing their beverages in aluminum cans, or folks just fill up their bottles or cups ahead of time at our refill stations. We also conduct a training for all new staff on our waste sorting and environmental programs, and we include information about this policy as part of that training. I think because the policy and our refill infrastructure has been in place for so long, most staff, especially newer staff, just generally accept that the single-use plastic bottles are part of our day-to-day operations. So I feel like there's kind of been a culture that's been built over time, and I personally haven't had to go through that initial barrier or perception that, we're taking something away from people or staff. I will say, even though we've had this policy in place for a while, we still encounter some challenges. One challenge is that the policy we have, it applies to city events, but it also explicitly states that it does not apply to vendors at city-sponsored events. So events are a little complicated. Vendors can still sell the beverages in single-use plastic bottles, including our local Boy Scout troop, who does fundraising by selling these beverages. And also on top of that, our park staff have expressed that they want to have single-use bottles on hand for staff convenience, especially during long events. So we do set up a water bar at our events for water refill for staff and the public. So I feel like, having the vendors that can sell the single-use bottles, it runs a little counter to our goal of reducing waste and encouraging refill at our events. So that's something we're going to work on navigating for our future events. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, suggestions, happy to hear them.
Thanks so much, Michelle. It's so important to hear both, the strategies and what's working well, and also some of the challenges that come up, because that's what's real, right? When we institute these kinds of policies. Very helpful. And I want to pass things to Laurentine to speak about the experience of City of Alameda. And I think you have a Prezi, so maybe I also want to thank all of you for your patience, and especially Karen for jumping in when my Wi-Fi quit. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Karen, and we'll switch. Perfect. Seamless to Laurentine. Thank you. We're seeing, I think, your general screen here. Perfect. You know, it's always a challenge. Oh, go ahead. Great. Perfect. We're seeing it.
You're still muted.
And I was talking the whole time. Okay, I'm Lauren Teen with the City of Alameda, Zero Waste Program Specialist. And here at the City of Alameda, we have been using City County Payment Program funds to do water refill stations. So we've been getting the funding since fiscal year 05 and 06. And in the beginning, we used the funding for a variety of things. But it was in fiscal year 21, 22 when we started to focus on water refill stations. So to date, we've installed 6 citywide and in city facilities rather. And then we've spent about under $24,000 to do so of the grant funds. And I just added this, even though we're not talking about it. We've also used city county funds to install 3-stream indoor infrastructure. Because there's sometimes capacity constraints and timing, we have had to reimburse the state. I can give you that number if you're interested in it, but luckily it hasn't impacted successful applications moving forward. So it hasn't been a negative impact, but we haven't used all of the funding that we've been awarded over the years. And that's what I wanted to share. Did you have any questions for me?
Thanks so much, Laurentine. What was the name of the fund program again?
It's City County Payment Program. It's usually abbreviated to CAPRS, so CAPRS, and it's a per capita grant fund through CalRecycle. So usually the applications open in August, and they are a 2-year grant cycle. They don't fall in a normal fiscal year. In the past, it's been April. For example, I just reported on April. It was from April 9th, 2024 through March 1st, 2026, and it was called the fiscal year 23-24 grant. So it gets a little cumbersome tracking the funding to report because it doesn't fall in a typical fiscal year, July, June time scale, but it works. It's per capita, so it fluctuates. We've received over the years over 20,000, but consistently just under like 19,000 and something. And we do use it for other things, but we have used it to install. To date, we have more locations identified for water refill stations, but it depends on capacity. We have to depend on our facilities team to help us with that project. So it doesn't always work out.
So helpful to have all the, all the details for those who want to replicate from your great example. Thank you. And Alicia, I saw you had a comment in the chat in response to Michelle, and I think then we'll go back to the broader questions, including the ones for Kelly on her presentation.
Yeah, and I was just going to say we can include this state grant program in the Sustainable Purchasing Guide. So I think that would be useful to point to that. My question was around, has anyone really tried to get their vendors to comply with their laws around bottled water and any of their vendors to say sell reusable, water bottles and things at the event so that then it kind of collaborates and complements the other things that are going on at the event around that.
I see Carrie's hand is raised. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes. And if Laurentine's going to do this, then I'm going to do it. The jurisdiction that I previously worked in San Ramon, we had a very large once a year event called the Art and Wind event, Art and Wind Festival. And they sold bottled water at that event, and that rubbed me the wrong way. And we offered a reusable collectible cup, right? That actually turns color with cold beverages in it. And so they were using those for water and boozy drinks. And basically those cups allowed us to eliminate the bottled water being sold at the vendor stations for that event, which was really nice. In addition to that, I used the onset of a new heat illness prevention policy that the city of San Ramon had to take away their palletized bottled water, and we issued new reusable bottles to everybody, and put their names on them and said, this is your new bottle of water. And it was all talking about, how much water you should be drinking if you're out in the field and that sort of thing. But it really was quite effective, and I'm gonna see if I can replicate it here in San Leandro, because I do understand that we buy bottled water by the pallet for our maintenance services group. So I think that, it's all an evolution. Like you learn it in one place and start over, got to do it in the next place.
Yeah, I can just add that for the city of Alameda, we have our cups that we had made and distributed at our employee appreciation picnic. But we used Measure D funds for this, and it's metal. And hopefully we can do mugs going forward. That's the plan. I want stainless steel. We'll see what happens.
I love these examples. Nothing like a local example. And if you have questions about how this went through, there might have been little things along the way. Reach out, right, to your colleagues. Such wonderful sharing. And so we had some questions in the chat for Kelly about her presentation. Kelly, I don't know if you got the chance to look about, are the filters reverse osmosis systems? What are we looking at in terms of cost for a bottomless water cooler? Ultraviolet, does that remove nano and microplastics? And then about the recyclability or take back of filters. You want to jump in there?
Yeah. So filters, there's a lot of different kinds of filters. I highlighted the three most common in the presentation: activated carbon, reverse osmosis, and UV. So reverse osmosis is an option, but it's only one option. For the UV filters, what they filter out is like bacteria and viruses, but not anything else. So that's what that filter addresses. For the cost of a bottleless water cooler, it really varies. There are some like budget entry-level models that are a couple $100. But like larger ones could be, $1,000 or $2,000. So it varies widely, but it's still pretty affordable, especially when you factor in the maintenance costs. Usually on the bigger kind of waterless bottle coolers that you would have in a break room, those filters need to be replaced. It's generally every 6 to 12 months. It's not like the water pitchers where you have to replace the filters a little more frequently. And then the recyclability of the filters. There are some manufacturers that do have active take-back programs. I know Brita does currently. And it's going to vary by manufacturer, but it is something that we like to include in the specifications, even if it's just a signal to manufacturers saying, hey, we're looking for this. This is something that we're considering when we are making our purchases of this type of equipment. and we'll be, awarding maybe additional points for manufacturers that have take-back programs. So they are out there, but again, it's going to vary depending on the manufacturer.
Can I just add something about the filters and things? The UV is just, if you think of it, it's a disinfection process, and it essentially shines a light. It's less, it's sometimes combined with other types of filters that filter, um, the particulates and things out. But if you think of UV, it's really a light to get rid of the germs and things. And when you're looking at the different filters, you can see which of the certifications it has, and to see, does it get rid of, just really basic stuff, which is probably going to be a less expensive than filter than a more extensive one that might get rid of more complex chemicals like PFAS and other things.
Very helpful. Thank you. Thank you both. All right, I think we're ready to hop back into our presentation, and I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, we'll go better this time. Thank you, Alicia, for your patience. Let's see. Are you seeing my screen now? The sharing version.
Yes.
Okay, great. Take it away, Alicia.
Yeah, we wanted to just focus on just sort of a popcorn approach to talking about other purchasing strategies that you can use to reduce waste. And I put the win-win in there because a lot of times they will also save money, especially in the long run.
Wow. Okay, I think we have lost Alicia. I will do my best to speak to this slide while she rejoins. It's always useful to start with a um, surplus process. One example would be Alameda County, our property and salvage department. We have the ability to reuse products that have been returned to the warehouse on site. Karen, is there anything you want to share about this program, or anyone else on the line from Alameda County?
I can share that this program's been in place for quite a long time. It is unique though, because we have warehouse space, assigned to this type of program. And it for many years has been kind of a drop in, and it is open to the public in certain hours for sale, but for surplus reuse in-house, it's open to the it's available to county employees for free. One thing we have been piloting, and Jency on our team has been, really doing the yeoman's work of getting this implemented, is a pilot for an online reuse system that is I think a SharePoint site. So I can let Jency touch on that if she'd like, but otherwise, one thing we are curious about is, there are other platforms. Maybe you've heard of Reaply. There are, and SharePoint can always do these things. And, there's been some discussion amongst jurisdictions who, that, having a regional effort might be useful. And so we're interested, if you would like to be part of a conversation and that is of interest to you, especially for those in Alameda County, but if you're a neighbor, you can also express your interest. We could have a discussion. Stopways has agreed that, that might be something that they could support if there was enough interest and we could figure out how to make it work. So I'll just encourage you, if you want to vote with your feet and commit to joining a conversation, we'd be happy to host that along with Stop Waste.
That's great. And Jenna, I think we have a little prompt for the chat for this conversation later in the notes for this meeting. So if you want to throw that in, please do. If you're interested in talking further about, cross-jurisdictional reuse platform or collaboration, we're perhaps around furniture, please do throw your email address in there. If we see an email address or two, we'll convene the conversation in partnership with Stop Waste. And if we don't see an email address, then we we won't take that step because we aren't seeing the interest. So great. And Carrie says, can we use your warehouse space? I'm not sure, but we'll get to talk about the details later. I did see, thank you, Karen, for that wonderful pivot to something we were going to talk about later. So now let's go back to Alicia's presentations. We have Alicia back. And we can go to the next slide about sustainable purchasing guides.
Karen has been our hero today. I don't
Yeah.
know what is going on with the internet, but I got kicked off also. Okay. So as Sarah mentioned earlier, we do have some new sustainable purchasing guides, one on reusable food serviceware that's been up for a little while. We have talked about this topic in the past, and so we won't go into much details except to say it's, one of the critical things you can use in your break room and also for events. There's products, there's also services. And this sustainable purchasing guide just takes things one step further in giving you some guidance on what types of sustainable food serviceware might be the best, what types of things to avoid, like melamine, because it can leach some toxic chemicals, and also just some considerations to think about, if you need to microwave, make sure the product is microwave safe, or we also looked at some of the tech sheets to make sure that the products that we were recommending can typically be used in a commercial dishwasher, and we looked at some of the toxics. So we're trying to move the ball a little bit further to have you think not just, oh, we should buy reusable, but what types of reusable products and services are we recommending? On the meetings and events, we went into that. There's lots of guidance generally about sustainable purchasing, including a few things related to waste prevention. Again, obviously the food service ware, but also some of the giveaways as well. And you can access these two documents on the Stop Waste website. Next slide. So we just wanted to give you some big concepts of things to think about. Where are the opportunities to reduce waste around some of the products that you might be using? So cleaning products are one. If you're using aerosols for anything, it could be for, glass cleaners or general purpose cleaners or furniture polish, or some of the keyboard cleaners, there are opportunities to switch to concentrated cleaners. It's something that we've been promoting for a long time. And there is some innovative technology out here. Here's one example where you don't necessarily need to plumb it in. You can just actually they have built-in pumps and things like that. About a decade ago, San Francisco did a study. The Department of Environment found that if you're using aerosol cleaners, they are 27 times more expensive than concentrated green cleaning products. So if cost is the issue, switch over and you'll get a pretty quick turnaround and cost savings. Next slide. Wipes are something that are just used all over, whether it's like the ones I use on the mops or one that are just in the, in the little containers. They definitely are convenient, but they are costly and wasteful. Wipes clog pipes is one of the terms that we often hear. People sometimes want to flush them down the toilet and they can clog up the sewer system. They're used for lots of different applications, disinfection, even mopping floors, cleaning and sanitizing hands, and more. So you can look around and figure out where you are using wipes and where there might be opportunities to switch out to other alternatives that don't create that much waste. So they can be replaced with washable cloths, sponges, and mops, bottled hand soap and sanitizer. So that's just one opportunity to reduce waste. Next slide. Toner cartridges are one. I didn't know this until I went into the store. When you get a printer, it has a toner cartridge in it. Actually, the one that comes with the printer often is only a quarter full with ink. The standard ones usually are half full with ink or toner, and then you can now get high yield ones. So it's the same exact cartridge, it just has more toner or ink in it. And you can see this is just, I showed one example here where the standard one yields 120 pages and the other one uses 240. Obviously, centralized printers instead of desktop printers is another way to reduce. So when you the amount of cartridges. So when you're buying a printer or a copy or a multifunction device, even better, look at what the cartridges, how many pages they yield, and how much they cost. And you can usually find them. There's no standardization, but they often will have an X or an XL or a HY for high yield, and they often contain 2 to 3 times as much ink or toner, but they're only a little bit more expensive. So on a per copy basis, they are less expensive. Next slide. You can cut paper waste in other ways by getting rid of the desktop printers, moving to multifunction devices, using programs such as DocuSign and other ways, and learning how to scan and email, which is becoming much, much more popular and even a better way to keep track of your documents digitally. And the cost is not just the paper itself, but also the filing cabinets and the file folders and everything else, which can be other sources of waste. So we have seen many jurisdictions that set paper reduction goals, and that can help them if they want to switch to 100% recycled paper when they do need paper, and not have a significant increase in cost. Next slide. Packaging is another place to look. I just pulled some sample packaging, source reduction, and packaging language from Alameda County to just encourage the vendors to minimize their packaging waste when they're providing products to the county. And it's the smaller packaging, but also large volume packaging like pallets. I know a number of years ago we did a project in the Bay Area around looking at just trying to eliminate the styrofoam packaging from computers. And so there's some language available around that as well. So it's just another place to look and see what you can do to engage your vendors or even evaluate products based on the packaging as well. Next slide. We've had already today some discussion about Measure D as well as the state grant funds for paying for some of this. So a lot of times implementing these waste reduction purchasing activities have an upfront cost. And so Measure D for Alameda County, and there may be similar programs available for other counties, because I think we do have some people from other counties on this call, but this is for Alameda County local governments. It's the Alameda County Waste Reduction and Recycling Act. It was financed by tonnage fee. There have been updates to it that have voters have supported it as well. And it gives the Alameda County municipalities funds to pay for waste reduction and other types of recycling programs as well. But I highlight here some of the examples of eligible Measure D expenses that relate to purchasing for waste prevention or reduction. So some of the things we've been talking about today: water bottle refill stations that are plumbed, purchases of reusable water bottles, rechargeable batteries and charging stations, reusable food service ware, installation of dishwasher at your facility, hand dryers. There may be others, but these are the ones that really stood out to me. So if the upfront cost is the sticking point, this is one place that you can get financing, and it's not a loan, it's a grant program that you can get to pay for these upfront costs. And then you'll get the cost savings along the way as well. I think that's the end. So I'll send it back to Sarah for Q&A.
Great. Thanks so much, Alicia. So much rich information here and glad to have you back. And we do have a couple of questions in the chat. One from Sophia, are there any jurisdictions here that use iPads or electronics at council meetings instead of printing agenda packets for the public, commissions, etc.? So that's for Alicia, if you have examples in your mind or others to share.
So I have seen that quite a bit, where they send out the agenda packets and have them online. I think some of that is also for, getting information out in advance. And yeah, I think that's a pretty common practice. We've talked about possibly putting together some supplemental information on some of these smaller things, not doing a full sustainable purchasing guide, but we could, Sarah, you and I can talk about, would it make sense to have, here's some other examples just like these, and put some of the resources into those as opposed to having individual sustainable purchasing guides on each of those topics.
That's great. Thanks, Anna. There are a couple shout outs, Emeryville in the chat
Yep.
as well. Any other questions before we move to hearing more from all of you? Not seeing any in the chat.
I mean, I was
Right.
also just
Mhm.
thinking generally about like electronic documents. We're seeing it more in procurements, that it's going out that way, and bids coming in, because I remember long ago we used to get, big packets of information and even bid submittals. And it's one of the reasons we also rely on third-party certifications. We used to get lots and lots of documents showing, oh, the cleaning products don't kill fish, and things like that. And they would give us, pages and pages of information about that. Now there are ways to, in your bid submittal processes, to encourage vendors to say, oh, just put the link in the document, your bid submission, to the Green Seal or Eco Logo or Safer Choice certification for the product. So it makes the bid evaluation process easier, and it also cuts down on paper that needs to be submitted. So I think there are lots of opportunities, and we could brainstorm those for getting electronic documents incorporated into various city functions, including procurement.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks for that example. And we have many more examples coming up ahead. So you're going to see a link shared in chat, and that's going to welcome all of you to click through to a set of Google Slides. And I'm going to keep an eye on them to see you all joining. Let us know if you have trouble joining. We're going to get the chance to hear from all of you about some local examples of these purchasing strategies. You're going to get the chance to share your experience with furniture, foodware, bottled water alternatives like the ones we heard about today, and then any other items that were touched on today, like batteries, wipes, aerosols, um, and then other miscellaneous purchases that you've done. And we're going to invite some of you to speak up. We will not force you to speak, but we're going to hopefully get to hear some more local examples, because it's so rich, right, to hear from each other as colleagues. So I'm seeing a lot of people hop into the document, and you can just switch from slide 1, slide 2, slide 3 to scroll through the different product categories. I'm seeing some folks adding their information in here, really helpful. Thank you. And I did include those who spoke and shared their thinking. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes right now to add your name and information in there. Please pipe up if you need help accessing the document, or if you can't get into that Google Sheet, you can also just share any strategies that you've done in the chat, and we will put it in for you. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to fill in your information, and then we'll go through and hear a couple of the stories to highlight some of our local strategies. Give you a minute here. Okay, I'm seeing some still entering data, so please feel free to finish that up. And then when I see things quiet, we'll get to some examples. Thanks all for sharing.
Mhm.
You should be able to click in and write on the following line if someone's in there. So if you need more space, let us know or just hop in, hop in and do it in the chat. Some great examples in here. Okay, I'm going to get us rolling with some of these great furniture examples. And let's see, Carrie, if you would be willing to start us off your example of refurbished cubicles.
Yes, I'd
I
be
already
happy to.
chatted with Carrie and she said she was willing to share. That's why I'm
Yeah.
calling on her so boldly. Okay.
But as we were coming up to my thing, I'm like, you know what? They're going to want to see this. I didn't create a presentation, so I just pulled up a few pictures so that you could see what we were after. So,
Okay.
um, I have been using refurbished cubicles since my time that I worked at City of Alameda. We provided a bunch of like the admin offices and some of the smaller offices with refurbished cubes. Basically, pull out all the old furniture. And by the way, it was really old. A lot of it was naval administration hand-me-downs, right? Because it was out at the old Alameda Point. So it was really bad. Nobody wants that furniture. I mean, we talk all we want about reuse, but nobody wants that furniture that we took out of the old Naval Administration building. Anyway, so it was, but I also when I worked for San Ramon, watched an entire police department building get unloaded of its furniture directly into debris boxes. We tried to get other cities and jurisdictions, like other fire and police folks like, hey, don't you want this stuff? And some of them were able to receive it just like that as it's coming out of the building. And instead of the debris box, it went into their truck, right? Because the gifting of public assets is a tricky little spot to ride. But if it was going directly to the landfill and if you were able to receive it instead of that, we were bypassing it. And I think that was legit. Come on. But then as I've been here in San Leandro, uh, I have watched a couple of departments empty out their uh, offices full of furniture and buy brand new furniture. And it was frustrating me. And then they said, hey, Carrie, we want to put you in this old library that is no longer being used as a library. We just want to have the environmental division in there. And it's a tiny little house, sort of house-sized library at the corner of 148th and East 14th. And I was like, okay, I can do my reusable thing here. And I went out and got quotes for both new furniture from the same folks that were providing furniture for the other departments. And then I got a quote from Eco Office, which I believe is a Milpitas based company. I'm pretty sure they're still in Milpitas, but it's South Bay somewhat. But they receive, I just want to talk about Eco Office for a quick second. Eco Office receives furniture from various companies as they move out, right? Let's pretend it was like a 2-year, 4-year, they went bankrupt business and they get virtually new furniture and they clean it up and will sell it to you. But they kit it up basically and they'll change. So, like for cubes, they repaint the metal cubes and they refabric them and then resell them to you, right? And they refabric them to the color you want. And they've got these colors, and the furniture they'll also reface. So it's remanufactured in some ways, refurbished in others, and I find them to be a great company to work with. Uh, and I wanted to show you. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen. Um, da, 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 da. Just one second, please. Oh wait, I'm going to use this whole screen. Okay, so Eco Office sent me this redesign of my old house library. And I'm telling you, this is probably maybe a 1,100 square feet here. It's not that big. And we had this tiny little kitchen bathroom area, an area that could be used for a conference room. This is now one, two, three, four, five, six potential cubes, right? So we'd have working space and everything. And that was just the size I really only have three full-time staff working in this building right now. We also have an intern, but I also wanted my public works director to be able to perch at one of these desks. So we get this layout and they said, okay, go, let's just do it. We love this. This is fantastic. It creates a little hallway privacy for folks. As you notice, there really aren't walls. The only walls are this around this bathroom kitchenette area. So once we got that done, here is the empty library when we emptied it really of bookshelves and of this pile of junk that was left. This library was closed during the pandemic. It really didn't have a lot of folks coming here before that. So here is Eco Office moving in our new stuff. So those are our new refurbished chairs, our new refurbished furniture. There's the ramp, right? You can tell this ramp, it's a little old, but it's okay. We've got it going. Here are the new cubes and furniture in this new space. That is our new conference room that we use today. This is the new back hallway that really didn't exist, right? If we're staring at the opposite wall, there is actually the opening to my desk. This is what the new library then looks like. You saw this just a second ago. There is an original reading nook that was here for the library, and I placed one of the Eco Office bookshelves there so we could continue it as a reading nook. Let me get to the next page. This is the reading nook now, right? We made it into something where our staff can go and get away from their desk for a second and just check out, go read something. I got a bunch of secondhand books at White Elephant Sale that have to do with the environment. I got some stuff for kids that would be fun for that as well. This is us kind of moved in here. This is my desk, much as it looks right now. And that's it. And I just wanted to say that the whole thing was delightful. The bid for Eco Office came in at $20,000 less than the next bid. And it was because of that refurbished option. We selected exactly what we needed and nothing more. And I just think I couldn't recommend it more. It feels rewarding. I did pay for it with Measure D funds, the landfill tip fee funds. And it's just the way to go.
Thank you so much, Carrie. What a colorful and fun example to follow. And there are a lot of different ways that you could build on that example. So thank you for that. There are some great other examples for furniture procurement in here, what you bought and what you did. I'm seeing some establishing a restore, using our Alameda County example of using a SharePoint site to host ergonomic equipment, surplus for reuse, and a franchise hauler. So there's really great to see if we can donate old furniture. So really great examples there. I do want to hop us onto foodware, and then we'll see at the end if we have time for another example or two. But foodware is always a hot topic with this group. You all are always want to talk about foodware with good reason. There's some challenges in this space. So I want to hear what folks, and people are still adding here. Let's start with an example. Monica, if we have you. Um,
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I've seen a few people now enter in that they use Sparkle as well. So there's may not be new information for most of you on here. But Sparkle is basically a system that will come and they'll drop off the reusable dishware directly to you and then pick it up right after. You don't have to do any cleaning. So for an organization like Pleasanton, where we don't really have any infrastructure internally, it's a really great option to use. Very simple, easy to use. We've only had good experiences with them. We use it mainly for internal events. So for our holiday party, for example, we also do have an all-employee luncheon that we've utilized it for, like a barbecue style The only downside, or not downside, but challenge, I would say, is that we have had some people think that they are disposable and then they then go to throw it away, and we kind of have to go and, remind them and check and make sure that we aren't losing any of the inventory that we have. Just because sometimes like the green silverware that they've given us, it almost could be mistaken for a plastic fork because it is a little bit lightweight. But before our events, our best practice is always to make an announcement, let people know that we're using Sparkle, that these are reusable dishware, that we're trying to encourage all folks within the city to utilize them. And then we typically do have one of our outreach staff kind of move about and be stationed near the waste area, or at least keep an eye on it so that way we can make sure that people are utilizing them properly and then putting them back into the bins that Sparkle has supplied for us to return them. A side note too, is that something that we are looking into is getting an internal set of dishware, and I see a few other cities have done that. So I know personally, I'm really looking forward to hear if any cities have the reusable dishware that you have, if you have dishwashers and how you kind of manage that process on site with loaning it out to different departments and the organization behind that. But if anybody has any questions about Sparkle, feel free to reach out to me, and let me know.
Thanks so much, Monica. Yeah, I think it's catching on, the idea of a set and a contractor to help with those reusables. Thank you so much for that example and illuminating it a bit extra for us. We have time for maybe one more example. So if someone wants to speak to the question Monica posed about, internal, maybe you have reusables and you're washing and using them internally, or speak to one of these other examples, such as, for furniture. Now's your time.
I just wanted to jump in. I'm waiting for my photos to load. I don't know if it'll make it because there's always a lapse of time. But we have internal meetings, and one of them is called the managers meeting. And recently, well, actually, it was at a strategic planning meeting, and we had a meal, and everything was reusables. And we have Okapi here in Alameda, and Mark can definitely chime in and speak to this. But for our internal managers meeting, what Okapi does now is they do to go packages where it's little metal cups and reusable cups, and they give you everything you need. And so we have been using them for our managers meeting, and my photos just popped in, so I'll put it in the chat. I'll cut and paste and put it in the chat, and it just is a really nice touch that you have. So we do have most people bring their mugs and cups to work, but at least for the internal meetings, you have the Okapi um, program to use, so it's a nice touch.
Great. Thanks for that. Okay, I'll close out the meeting in just a minute. I see Carrie's hand. So do you have the 1 or 2 sentence version to capture?
I just wanted to say that in addition to Sparkle, what I was successful with in San Ramon was buying small dish sets to replace what people would immediately reach for. There was a dishwasher there, but in the main city hall, I bought some cute little cake plates, right? So if you imagine that usually what people bring that stuff out for, the disposables is for some, department cake or whatever. So I got some cute cake plates that could be easily loaded into the dishwasher and the silverware to go with it. But yeah, and I got them all secondhand at a White Elephant sale, and they seem to still like it.
That's great. I think we also have City of San Leandro, pardon me, that's your San Leandro, San Rafael on the line, and they had a Green Your Meeting bag, which was everything you needed in one gym. They call it the GYM gym. Very cute ideas there, and similar to what you're saying, Carrie. Such great examples here. Thank you all for sharing so much, and I'm going to close us out. To share the resources that we've prepared and will be sharing with you. So I'm going to share in email. Everyone who's registered will receive any of the resources already available online. So the Sustainable Purchasing Guide for meetings and events, that's brand new, and our other SPGs, as we call them. And I'm going to share the City of Dublin, the ban document that Michelle referred to, with an expiring link. So reach out if there's anything that, with a link that has expired, just reach out and share if you need me to share it again later. And then I will be following up with everyone registered with the SPGs, those sustainable purchasing guides, once they're posted for batteries and for alternatives to bottled water. And we will be drawing from and learning from the questions that you posed today and the examples that you gave. So thanks for being a part of that process and the resource that will benefit everyone in the region and beyond. And please continue to reach out for technical assistance, both to our wonderful consulting team, including today's presenter, Alicia, and also Carl, who's on the line, who provide technical assistance through Stop Waste, and also to me and to Karen, our angel for the day, who saved us many a time. Thanks, and thanks to Karen and to all of you who rolled with the punches and had patience with our tech difficulties. Please fill out an evaluation. This really helps us know what other products are on your mind, services, products, strategies. What are your key questions around green purchasing? We are here for you. We really want to know what's on your minds and where the challenges lie. And like I said, reach out. And so the email addresses for any further questions are here. Thank you all so much for joining. Take care. And yes, and thank you so much to our city speakers. I want to thank you once again. So rich to have those examples from the real world. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.